One of the MVPs on the coronavirus task force, Dr. Anthony Fauci, remotely testified to the Senate, warning that reopening too early could result in an outbreak that we can't control. But Senator Rand Paul, who had the coronavirus and still isn't wearing a mask, said he wants a second opinion. Watch.
It's not to say this isn't deadly, but really outside of New England, we've had a relatively benign course for this virus nationwide. And I think the one-size-fits-all that we're going to have a national strategy and nobody's going to go to school is kind of ridiculous. So I think we ought to have a little bit of humility in our belief that we know what's best for the economy. And as much as I respect you, Dr. Fauci, I don't think you're the end-all.
I have never made myself out to be the end-all and only voice in this. I'm a scientist, a physician, and a public health official. I give advice according to the best scientific evidence. We don't know everything about this virus, and we really better be very careful, particularly when it comes to children.
I mean, you know, Dr. Fauci said from day one he's about the facts and science on this. And so why is this being politicized? Or am I crazy? Is it not being politicized? Because that's kind of what it feels like to me, Sonny. Your opinion.
Well, you know, I think Dr. Fauci was giving facts. I think it was Rand Paul that was trying to politicize it. And you know, he was comparing Sweden and Sweden's opening. And I think that he failed to mention that Sweden does have the largest number of COVID-19 cases and fatalities in Scandinavia. And what was most offensive to me was he was talking about children. You know, and children are not immune to the effects of COVID-19. There's a 10-year-old child in Kentucky in critical condition. In New York, there are at least 93 children and teens that have this inflammatory syndrome that is believed to be linked to COVID-19, and that syndrome is still not really understood. You know, my son's friend is 17 years old, is in the hospital, in the ICU in Westchester, suffering. And the suggestion somehow that we should just open up schools is just really ludicrous, because if one child dies, isn't that just too much? If my child is affected, if someone's child is affected and we don't know enough, does Rand Paul think that that's just kind of okay? I think that kind of cavalier notion is what has gotten the United States into the situation that it is in, with over 80,000 people dead. This administration and these senators need to really be very careful with that kind of political rhetoric.
So Fauci agreed with Rand Paul that he's not the only voice in the room. But do you think Paul made some valid points about reopening, Megan?
I guess this show is called The View because I have a completely different take on yesterday, and I watched the entire thing. And I would like to say I respect Dr. Fauci, just as I think most Americans do. But look, California has just announced that they're extending their sheltering in place through August. And I got more than a few phone calls from friends that are just absolutely despondent, out of work, can't go anywhere, can't do anything, and are really looking down the barrel of being unable to pay their mortgage, being unable to feed themselves, really scary things that you don't think of happening in this time. There are a lot of different ways to die from COVID. We're seeing suicide spikes in unprecedented numbers, 1,000% raise in the suicide hotlines here in the United States of America. There's depression at absolutely exponential levels. And I think the question a lot of people are raising is, I think all of us have been very responsible, at least here on the show, and have abided by the rules. And I don't have a problem with that. But what Rand Paul was trying to say to Anthony Fauci is that you've been really wrong on a lot of things. And there's a clip online that was played on Tucker Carlson last night talking about everything from you don't have to wear masks to 2.2 million people are going to die to we need millions of ventilators, that now we have so many ventilators we don't know what to do and we're giving it to foreign countries right now. And I think if you see someone like Elon Musk, who is completely waving his finger at local officials in California. He reopened Tesla yesterday, brought back his workers. He employs 37,000 workers in California. And he's saying, no, it is important that people go back to work as long as we do it safely. And as of today, I'm not aware that Elon Musk has been arrested for doing anything wrong. So I think that we're going to have to come to some kind of middle ground, because right now there's a lot of feelings of hopelessness that this is just where we're at. We're going to be sheltering in place, not just to curb or flatten the curb. We're going to be sheltering in place place until we find a vaccine, until there are no deaths in America whatsoever. But at the same time, we are going to bankrupt this country and not have enough ink and printers to print money to get us out of it. So I think there has to be more than just we're locking down the country for the foreseeable future. And I know I'm going on a little tangent, but last final thing, I think what we're going to see is different states benefiting in different ways, because some of the things I'm hearing is that people are just going to move to states like Georgia and Florida and Texas and decide to live their lives there and flee these major cities that aren't letting people live in any kind of substantial way.
Right. So, Sarah, what was your takeaway from all this?
Well, I actually believe the doctors should have the final word when it comes to the virus. I don't mind a second opinion because I seek them myself when I'm doing anything with my medical and well-being. But when or Senator Rand Paul said that he needs to not have the final word, I've always said from the beginning that this is a young virus. This falls under scientists and doctors. Dr. Fauci is not being political. He took a Hippocratic oath to do no harm when he became a doctor. He is purely warning on what they know and what they very openly admit they don't know. And a lot of the reason we haven't seen the numbers and a lot of the things they predicted is because we're doing what they told us to do. So I tend to err on the side of I understand what Megan brought up in regard to mental health as someone that struggles with anxiety and depression. The comfort I find, as much as I'm struggling in these times, and I'm sure a lot of people tons of people are, is I know I have some tools for that. I know how to handle it to an extent. I know there are some things that can help me. The scarier thing to me is this virus, because right now we don't know. And with young kids and all these syndromes coming out, I once found comfort in the fact that we didn't think it was going to affect kids to the same level. And now we can't even say that. So I think the fact that we don't know much, I totally understand that everyone needs to get back up and running. But I don't even think if schools opened up right now as a parent, I'd feel comfortable sending my kids back because of what we don't know. So again, I know I'm also going on a bit of a tangent here, but I would say that I do trust Dr. Fauci. There was a CNN poll that said 67% of Americans do trust Dr. Fauci, and I just will tend to always default to the doctors and scientists because they don't have a political, they're not politically motivated for this. So, but there's a lot that no one knows, so I see pain on both sides.
Well, here's from... may I? Yes, do I have a second to say what I want to say? Because I just want to remind people, I don't think that there's any governor or anyone here who doesn't want to open up and get their states back on track. I don't think anyone is saying, ooh, I'm going to keep everyone home and I'm going to keep this going. It seems to me that if they weren't doing all of this, we'd be pissed at them because they didn't do their job. So for me, yeah, Elon can do that, but he now has to make sure that he maintains all the stuff he's supposed to maintain. There's no slack here. See, because once this starts up again, and it may, but it may also kick into something different, which is what kids are discovering now. Nobody knows anything about this, so the fact that he was wrong, I get it, but he was right about a lot more than he was wrong about. And I just don't see how, if you open it up and people start traveling again, you don't, because we don't know what other diseases this thing carries. We don't know what else will come. It's going to be tricky. But if you don't stay home and you go out and you do everything and you catch it and die, there you are. You still don't get to do any of the things you say you want to do. It's very tricky, y'all.